Welcome in, everybody. This is exciting. The very first live stream in this channel's history. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to have to do a good job here of looking up at the camera and making sure all the stream stuff is ready to go. This is my very first time streaming on YouTube, so I'm just making sure everything is all squared away. I hope anyone that has a Dell laptop knows that sometimes it's great, really powerful laptop, but sometimes it does sound like it is about to take off. So I hope you can't hear that in the background. I got a good mic to make sure that that's not doing that too poorly. But anyway, as people start to come in, thank you so much for tuning in to the live stream. I can't believe that we're getting to a point now where it's only like an hour and a half away from the start of the NFL season, the official start of the season. And this stream is kind of just to hang out and chill and talk about whatever we want to talk about. And I do have stuff planned here, but obviously everything that happens in the chat is going to for sure take precedent over anything else that I talk about because the importance is towards you and the viewers. So I'm gonna give a few more minutes here for people to go ahead and join the stream. I am really excited that I'm gonna be able to start doing this, and the hope is that I'm gonna be able to do this multiple weeks in the season and kind of bump up the quality of things because I know there's a lot of ways to put some cool graphics up, and I have seen how to do that, and I'm definitely going to do that in the future. Obviously, this is kind of just the first stream where I'm going to be taking a look at how this goes and see how I can make it better and improve it. So this is kind of a test stream, but also it's a fully fledged stream that I'm really excited to get going. So give a couple more minutes and then I'll kind of launch into things here. Welcome to everyone viewing. This is a lot of fun. So for those of you who don't know, I had a podcast. I've had a podcast for a few years now. It's been multiple different things throughout the years, but it's always been sports. But I just kind of changed it from time to time. But then I also had a live radio show where I went to college at a place that was really heavy on radio, and so I got to do my very own radio show. It was a whole lot of fun, and so I understand being live. I've done live stuff before, and I also call games for sports and like high school sports in the area. So I have my experience with that, but it's kind of a whole different story when I am, actually live with video. It's just a little bit nerve-wracking, but really excited to get things started. And it looks like we got a few viewers now, so looks like some of the people are starting to come in. I'll give, maybe one more minute, and then I'll kind of launch into things. I guess while I am getting this started, while people are still kind of starting to filter in, I can just tell a brief story about how my week has gone so far. So it's some interesting stories I have not told yet on this channel. So on Saturday or on Sunday actually, me and my wife went over to Roseville. She needed to get a new phone, which is a whole thing by itself because it's from some freak accident completely shattered the camera lens. So we had to go all the way to Rosedale Mall to get a new one, and we were doing all that. And then on our way back, we were literally about to get onto the freeway. We were on the on ramp to that freeway, and my tie rod, which I through this experience had just learned what a tie rod is, it popped. I don't know if it popped out. I'm not a car guy, as you can tell, but it completely just popped out, and it was like the tire was just kind of like hanging around, and I had to like skid off the side of the road, and it was a whole dilemma. It really was kind of a blessing in disguise because it could have been really bad if I was going faster because again I was on the on ramp and I had been going 55. I was going to be going 60, so it was kind of a scary situation, but cool story at least to tell people. But just a couple days ago, my car got fixed by some family, so thanks to them for doing that. But that was a crazy situation, and I guess a fun story to tell, if anything else. I'm not sure if you can see my shirt, by the way. Um, this was this was given to me by my family for the fantasy draft. So I didn't wear it that day because I always like wearing my Vikings jersey to the draft, but I had to show off some merch on the stream. So for the people that are in here now, please let me know in the chat anything you want to let me know. Ask me questions. It can be questions about sports, questions personally, just anything you want to know as we get into things. I do have some stuff planned to talk about, but feel free to say whatever you want in the comments. That's going to take precedent because a lot of this whole live stream is kind of getting to know people better and having kind of a more fun, intimate experience. And there's no cuts, there's no anything like that. I sometimes rely on cuts to when I say stupid stuff. So it's kind of a raw, just me talking. So I like this, and I think I'm going to continue to do it. I'm thinking maybe even every Thursday I'll do a stream, or maybe before every Vikings game, maybe I can even do a stream then. But I'm thinking whether or not if I have time, maybe I'll do another one next week for the Vikings Eagles game. But anyway, I'm thinking what would be the best thing to start with here. So let's just start with the Lions and the Chiefs tonight. It's going to be a super exciting matchup, and I can't think of a better two teams to start off the season because you got the reigning champion. I always think that the Super Bowl champion should play in that first game of the season. I think it should always be at least one team that was in the playoffs. I get certain rivalries, but if the rivalry isn't between two good teams, then I don't see the point. Like a few years back when I was in college, the Packers played the Bears to start off the season, which great rivalry, and it ended up being a better game, but like why would you do that? Back when the Bears were so bad, why would you set that up? But this game should actually be good. It's the Super Bowl champions, like I mentioned, versus a team that is very hyped up this season. And in a few videos back, if you didn't watch it, I made a video talking about the teams that had the highest expectations, and I put the Jets slightly above the Lions on that list, but the Lions were, I think, either the second or the third on that list, and rightly so, because they have so much to prove this year. All the stuff in the offseason that people were saying about the Lions, this is the first game towards trying to prove that all those things are true. You know, it was really a tale of two seasons for the Lions last year. They barely won a game in the first half, and then they went on a crazy run. And so I really think it can go both ways for this team. I think that you've got, the horrendous defense that they had last year, and then you combine that with the offense that should even get better this year, which was, I think, sixth or seventh ranked in the NFL last year, according to Pro Football Focus. So that the combination of those two, it's a kind of a similar situation as the Vikings, because it's like, yes, the league has changed nowadays, where now it's fully reliant on the offense. Offense seems to win championships now more than defense, but you still need to have a decent one to really, change your team and change that course. And so I do have concerns about the Lions defense. That being said, this offense could jump to that next level, and this is the first time we'll get to see it. And so I think we'll get a pretty good gauge of that in this game. One of the biggest things that I feel like people are talking about this year is the NFC North. And I'm going to get into that real quick, just the NFC North in general, because I watched it was Good Morning Football, the podcast version of it, on my way to work the last few days. And they were doing a lot of NFL predictions there, and I always love watching and hearing different perspectives on the different, divisions, because you got the AFC East where it's the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and even the Patriots. Like I don't see the Patriots this year, but you can kind of make cases, and you can hear people say, I think it's going to be the Jets. If Tua stays healthy, I think that it's going to be the Dolphins, or the Bills are established, they'll win. And you hear all those, and you're like, okay, like I can see it all different ways. But with the NFC North, I really think it's a horse race between two teams, the Lions and the Vikings. And I just don't understand people who are saying that it should be either the Packers or the Bears. It just makes no sense. I understand that there's always a worst to first team, and I will admit that if I could pick any team to go from worst to first, the Bears might be that team. That being said, to predict them to win the division, I just don't get it. You've got Justin Fields coming into his third season as a starter in the NFL, and his team did change a lot around him, but is it enough change where you can say that a team that won 3 games last year is going to win the division? It is mind-boggling to me. They had the number one pick to go into the draft, and I think people forgot about that because it was traded away. The Bears seemed like they weren't as bad as they really were last year, because it kind of went by the wayside because the Bears didn't have that number one pick. And that's always the first, everyone's talking about that is, this is the worst team in the NFL. How are they going to use that first pick to make themselves better? And they traded it away, and people were all of a sudden like, but the Bears didn't do that bad last year, did they? And the answer is still yes, they did. So to go from 3 wins to now people saying, well, all you got to do is add a couple more things to this team to win the NFC North is just ridiculous. And then on the Packers side, yes, I understand the feeling that people have where they want to trust that this Packers front office can take another quarterback and turn them into a star, but Jordan Love has a different story, I think, than Favre and Rodgers did, especially Rodgers. I mean, I think Rodgers went in as he was a clear, far and away favorite to be a great player in this league, whereas Jordan Love was picked it was viewed as kind of a reach. It was viewed in a situation where the Packers didn't necessarily need him in that spot. So kind of different stories where I don't know, it's varying levels of confidence compared to those two quarterbacks of the past for the Packers. But people are just deciding that the Packers are going to be somehow better this year with Love than with Rodgers. It's almost like they're trying to manifest it into existence because, there's people saying that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are going to be Super Bowl contenders immediately with Rodgers joining the team, and somehow it's sometimes still those same few people that are also saying the Packers are going to be led to a over 500 season or potentially even a division winning season with Jordan Love. And it's just like those two things don't make sense together at the same time, because either Aaron Rodgers left the Packers in a worse state, and that's why the Jets are going to be a good team, or Aaron Rodgers really isn't as good as people think he is, and that's why people think that Love will come in and make the Packers better. But those two things can't exist at the same time. If Aaron Rodgers is as good as a quarterback as people are saying he is, that means that the Packers were just beyond his help. And so people are just really contradicting themselves with that. And then you take the two top teams. In my opinion, there's two very clear tiers. If you're going 1 through 4 tiers, with the top tier being the serious Super Bowl contenders, the second tier being kind of fringe playoff teams to potentially solid playoff teams, The third tier being not going to make the playoffs, but they're kind of just in that middle group, and the bottom tier being the worst of the worst. I think it's very clear the Vikings are in a clear second tier, and the Lions are in that clear second tier, and then the bottom two in the division are in that very clear third tier. That's just my personal opinion. I think there's a very clear difference between the Packers and Bears and Lions and Vikings in this division. So going to that top of the division, the Lions and the Vikings are being treated completely differently in this offseason by a lot of different analysts in a way that I don't think is very fair to the Vikings. Because you've got the Vikings that last year, won more games than they should have, won 13 games, and their offense was great. Their defense was one of the worst in the league. And then you, if not make the Vikings offense better this offseason, you at least kept it at the same level it was. You extend Hawkinson, he's going to have that added level of investment in the team. Fingers crossed on JJ. We haven't heard about the contract extension yet, but rumor has it is that an offer has been made to him, and they're trying to make something happen by Sunday. So hopefully that extra level of investment in the team from JJ as well, although he's got an incredible work ethic, that's not going to change anything for him. And then Kirk Cousins, hopefully trying to have one of the best seasons of his career. He always does well in contract years, so there's that he's got going for him. And then you throw in Jordan Addison, where, obviously he's got immediate injury concerns, and yes, there was that incident of the high-speed dog hospital fiasco, which I still don't know if I believe that story by him. But all of that to say, I think Addison is going to at least replace Thielen's role in this offense, and if not, it's going to even liven it more and create more of a downfield threat that Adam Thielen couldn't be anymore in his age. And so, if anything, the Vikings offense got better. At the very least, it stayed the same. And obviously, the offensive line is still a huge factor, and I spent a lot of time on that when I talked about my breakdown video of the Vikings-Buccaneers game, which is coming out tomorrow, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. But a big part of that video is me talking about the interior offensive line and how Vita Vea is going to be a nuisance for the Vikings all week long. So that's the main concern of the offense for the Vikings. But then you swing things over and you've got a top 10 offense, and then the defense was bottom 5 last year, potentially the worst in the entire league. And so they won 13 games when the defense couldn't get quite, and really much worse, to be fair. And so you throw in Brian Flores, and regardless of who the players are on this team, because yes, we lost Eric Kendricks, our defense on paper did get even slightly worse than it did, but Brian Flores is going to make, honestly, Brian Flores on coordinating this defense is going to make potentially no-name guys play better than Ed Donatell's defense last year made the guys that were on the team last year play, because I just love his schemes, his blitz heavy packages. I think that this is a serious defensive mind that he's going to pull off things Ed Donatell can't pull off. So that's going to be a big factor for the Vikings. So on paper and in all intents and purposes. I almost said intensive purposes, but that is all going to coalesce into the Vikings should be a better team this upcoming year than last year. And even if you think the Vikings only deserve to win 9 of the games that they won last year, that makes them 9-8 last year. They should tack a couple more on this year and be a 10-win team or an 11-win team. So it's weird because they'll probably be a better team than last year with a couple less wins than last year. So moving on to the Lions now, which is the team that's actually playing tonight. You can't stop me from talking about the Vikings, though. The Lions now go in, and they're in a very similar situation. One of the worst defenses last year, and then the offense comes in and starts really carrying them. The Lions almost make the playoffs last year, and it's that momentum. They came off of that last win against the Packers. You finish off the season with a win, with a very convincing win to try and prove that this is the way it's going to be from now on. And all of a sudden, that narrative changes between the Lions and the Vikings, where these are two very similar teams, but for some reason, the Vikings are being incredibly underhyped by a lot of analysts because of the way their season ended. And then the Lions are getting seriously overhyped because of the way their season ended. And at the end of the day, I think these two teams are very even, but all the people saying the Lions are going to win the division are saying that because they give that edge to the Lions because of just the good feeling that they were given by that team the way they finished off the season. Even though these two teams are very similar, it just feels like the Lions are being viewed as trending up, the Vikings are being viewed as trending way down. And yes, maybe the Vikings are going to win less games this year, but it's completely unfair to say that somehow they're going to miss the playoffs, which a lot of people on Good Morning Football said a couple days ago. It's just I don't quite understand the underhyping and overhyping. For the Chiefs anyway, this is a team people were angry at me when I told them that I had the Chargers winning the division this year, and it was my upset pick, my major division standings upset prediction that the Chargers would be the second seed in the AFC West, or the second seed in the AFC, and win the AFC West over the Chiefs. And I made that prediction even before the whole Travis Kelce situation happened. So that has nothing to do with it. And it does look like it's only going to be a couple. In fact, I haven't even looked at the injury status for him this game, although really it would be a very bad decision on the Chiefs' part to start him in this game because you got the whole season ahead of you. You know, if you feel confident enough about against the Lions, you should be able to win the game without him. And it just would be a bad decision to throw out a guy that could potentially aggravate an injury that could cost him way more games in the season than he was going to lose already. So I think it's a good decision by the Chiefs if they sit him in this game. That being said, it is an important game for both teams. And if the Chiefs do lose this game, it's automatically going to give the Chargers a leg up. So all of this is me trying to lead into me trying to figure out who I'm actually rooting for in this game. Because believe it or not, even with all the stuff I've been saying about how the Lions are a little overhyped, I do really want them to succeed this year. Obviously, I don't want it to be at the expense of the Vikings. So if any situation where the Lions being in the playoffs gives the Vikings a worse chance, I'm going to root against them. But if the Vikings were in a situation where they were making the playoffs no matter what, or were out of the playoffs no matter what, I think that I would still root wholeheartedly for the Lions. And that being said, though, you think about this, you're like, is this game, it could end up being the difference between the Vikings winning or losing the division later on in the season, because I really do think it's going to come down to the last few weeks when the two teams play each other, the Lions and the Vikings, in week 15 and 17, is it? And so I'm thinking about this, and like, if the Lions lose this game, it could be the deciding factor. On the other hand, if they win this game and the Vikings lose against the Chiefs later on in the season, could be a big factor. So I feel like I'm kind of predisposed to root against the Lions in this game. That being said, I'm still going to be happy and intrigued if they win. It's not going to be the end of the world if they do. So I think at the end of the day, I have to lean towards the Chiefs winning this game. But I think it's going to be a good game either way, especially now with Travis Kelce out. Give me 1 second. So I'm trying to figure out. There's a couple people on my phone asking me how to get to the chat, and it should just be if you're watching on your laptop, it should be to the right of the stream, and then if you're on your phone, I'm not entirely sure honestly how to comment. I think you might be able to scroll down. I've honestly never watched a live stream on YouTube on my phone, so if if you're trying to figure out how to comment on your phone, I'm not entirely sure how to do that. Honestly, you might need to look that up. because I've only ever used it on my laptop. So hopefully you get that figured out. But let's see, what else do I have to talk about here in the meantime? I think that I'm going to get into a few as we kind of hype up the season and get excited for the season to start. I think I'm going to go into some of these games that I'm most excited to watch throughout I have the first half of the season here, the games that I'm most excited to watch week by week. We're just kind of going to go over them, and also make sure you comment in the comment section in the live chat what games you're most excited to see this season, and I'll talk about those as well if they're not on my list. So, and also, again, if you're coming in late, I would love to hear people's opinions and ask questions about games and everything else that's going on. I love to respond to some of those comments. I have plenty of stuff prepared, but if um, anyone comments, I'm happy to kind of dive into that before I get back to this. But week one, obviously, Lions Chiefs is the first one I have written down. Obviously, it's going to be. Hey, do you want to make a quick cameo? Here. If anyone didn't watch the jersey ranking video, this is my wife, Gwen. Nice to see her on the stream. What game are you most excited for in the first half of the season?
The Vikings-Buccaneers game that we're going to.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Make sure you watch that Raw reaction. If you don't know much about my channel, I do a Raw reaction every single game, every single Vikings game. As soon as the game's over, I immediately turn my camera around and I talk about my opinion about the game, and it's kind of fun because it's just like, usually I get to gather my thoughts before I talk about the games, but it's kind of fun because it's kind of a different reaction that I have right in the moment. So make sure you tune into those videos. Every single week I'll be putting that out, that the Vikings have a game. And also, again, if you're just stumbling upon the channel now, I do predictions for every single week in the NFL season. I cover every other bit of news that's happening. And then I also break down every single week of action as soon as it's over. And on top of that, I do a specialized video breaking down the Vikings and their matchup coming up. And then I do that Raw reaction. And that's kind of my schedule for the whole NFL season. And then after the NFL season, I talk about pretty much everything else to do with sports in general and Minnesota sports. So I'm not just a Minnesota sports channel. I really cover it all. But anyway, with all that aside, again, make sure you comment whatever you want in the chat and I'll respond to it. But week one, obviously, Lions Chiefs is the big game that I'm excited to watch. There's a few here, though, that I'll break down. The Lions and Chiefs, two very different franchises in the last few years. The Lions having some of the most unfortunate seasons and stretches in sports history. And honestly, the Chiefs had that for a while. They didn't make it to a Super Bowl in, I think it was 50 years of a streak that they broke, or close to that anyway, when they won their Super Bowl in 2019, and now they've won a couple. People kind of forget that. Yes, they've had a lot of success now in the past few years, but before that, they were looking rough. They were a very passionate franchise who the fan base deserved a Super Bowl and just wasn't getting it for so long. So that's what I try to keep in mind, even though it's kind of annoying seeing the Chiefs succeed year after year now. They've been through a lot. They kind of deserve this, and you got to admit that. But now, in recent years, the Lions trying to get up to that point. The Chiefs have been there for a while, so it's almost like a potential, new successor to on the NFC side, where every year a team comes up, like the Bengals a few years ago, where they hadn't been there in a while, and it's a team to get excited for. And so, two teams that are going to be really fun to watch in this game tonight. And then the other two games, Packers-Bears, I'm really excited to watch this week. It's going to be a lot of fun watching those two teams, and I talked about the two, how I feel like they're very evenly matched. And like I mentioned in my video, if you didn't watch it, earlier today I released my very first week one predictions video where I picked the winner of every single game. And I talked about just how much of a must-win right off the bat this is for the Bears. They're finally coming off of an Aaron Rodgers list season with the Packers. Jordan Love coming in. You cannot let Jordan Love go into that stadium and beat you it would just be such a bad look for these Bears. So it's going to be a really fun game to watch. The fans are going to be more into this game than they've been into a game in the last few years. So I'm really excited for that one. And then obviously Bills Jets. That's going to be an absolute banger of a game. Can't wait to watch that one as well. The very first come on man of the season on ESPN. I don't love ESPN games, but that's one thing they have going for them. But prime time between Aaron Rodgers on his brand new team and the Jets, the only team that I think has more expectations coming into this season than the Lions. A full, hard knocks made about them. I mean, there's just so many storylines in that game. Not only is it, you're always excited to see a player in his new threads, especially a superstar player like Aaron Rodgers, and then you throw in the fact that it's immediately against a division rival. These two teams could be battling it out for the playoffs later on in the season. It's going to be the first meeting between these two teams, and I can't wait. And in the next few weeks, week 2 is Ravens Bengals, and that's another two teams that I think are going to be very evenly matched. I think that it's going to come down to Lamar's health, and if Lamar is fully healthy, I think the Ravens could be just as good as the Bengals this season. It's going to be a horse race between those two for the division. And obviously, the question is, can Lamar stay healthy? If Lamar isn't healthy, I mean, Tyler Huntley is a great backup QB, but I don't think he's going to be good enough, and he hasn't been good enough in the past few years to get past the Bengals. They almost pulled that upset off in the wild card round last year, but I feel like this is a matchup between Lamar and Burrow and these two teams that we've kind of been starved of the last couple seasons because Lamar just can't stay healthy. So people are going to feast on that game and on that battle back and forth between those two teams the entire season if that ends up being a thing. And then Chiefs Jags also is another game I'm looking forward to. I think that honestly, I've seen people insanely overhype the Jags, and then I've seen people think that they were just a one-hit wonder. I think they're somewhere in between. I have them. I had them in my predictions video a few weeks ago, going roughly 10-7, 9-8, and once again being the winner of the AFC South because that division is just awful. And I think they're going to be a slightly better team than last year. I don't think they're going to take some insane leap though. My cousin sent me predictions, and before I'm going to get off on another tangent, I'm just going to react to this real quick, because I was sent this by my cousin Jeremy. It is Peter King's playoff bracket for the season, and some of them are good picks, some of them are just atrocious. So we've got the Buffalo Bills in the 5 seed, so it's pretty low for the Bills, and then the Bengals at 4, barely winning their conference or their division. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the number 1 seed for Peter King, and I just think that's a huge leap that he thinks that the Jags are going to take. And yes, to be fair, I did say that the Chargers were going to win the division and be the 2nd seed. That was kind of a overhype for me from that standpoint, I guess. So all's fair, but Jaguars at 1 seed, that's pretty wild. And then Ravens at 6, that's fair. The Jets winning the division at 3, I guess I can see that. I don't see it happening. I have them as my 7 seed actually in the AFC. We have the Chiefs at 2, and then we have the Steelers at 7. I'm sorry, I just don't see the Steelers being a playoff team this year. I don't get it. Kenny Pickett, maybe he'll have a leap, but people are basing the just assumption that he's going to be great this season off of the last few games he had where he played really well, and that's just not fair to just assume things like that. And then on the NFC side, Cowboys at 5th seed, that's fair. Falcons at 4, any of those teams could win that division besides maybe the Buccaneers. The 49ers at the 1 seed, that's a little bit of a surprising prediction. That puts the Eagles at 2. The Lions at the 3 seed. So not only do they have the Lions making the playoffs and winning the division, they have them as the 3 seed, which honestly, obviously I would want the Vikings to win the division, but how cool would it be to see a playoff game at Ford Field? Imagine how rowdy those fans would be, how fun of a game that would be to watch those fans finally get a game that's worth something in January. Still rooting against them though, for obvious reasons. And then they have the Packers in the playoffs over the Vikings. I would understand if you maybe put the, I don't know, the Giants also not being in this field. Like if you put the Giants in there, fine. The Giants should be in the playoff field because they were a 11-6 team last year, and then you throw in the fact that they added Darren Waller, one of the best tight ends in the league, onto that team. Daniel Jones is only going to get better. How do you not put them in the playoffs? I just don't see what, like, I understand the whole idea of, like, okay, the Packers, they have a good running team. Jordan Love's going to be able to, be helped out by those running backs, and the defense is still decent. But this all has the makings of a very average year for the Packers. I just don't see how anyone can have them being in the playoffs, especially over a team like the Giants. That's just crazy to me. So anyway, I got off on a tangent there, but I think the Jags are a little bit overhyped, but it'll be really exciting in that week 4 matchup or the week 2 matchup to see those two teams playing each other. We have a comment in the chat. Kayla Philippi saying, do you think tonight's game is going to be high scoring or more of a defensive battle? I see this game as being somewhere in between, honestly. I think that there's so much hype for this matchup to be insanely high scoring. I honestly think these two teams might get off to just a little bit of a slow start in this one. I think that the final quarter and maybe the last half of the third will be high scoring as well. And I think they'll start to get their mojo going a little bit. But honestly, I kind of see with all the hype and all the this and that, I think that both teams are going to be trying to throw everything at the other team. And honestly, the defenses might come up clutch in a few of these first opening drives. And I hope I'm wrong because I want to see a shootout in this game. But I just have a little bit of a feeling that that's what's going to happen. So, great comment. Thank you so much for that. Also, you can ask me anything in the comments. Anyone that's here, I'd be happy to answer questions about other teams, even other sports. Anything you want to ask me, make sure you ask that in the comments. Going through here now, week 3, I'm really excited to see the Chargers and Vikings game because, like I said, I am hyping up the Chargers so much this offseason. I believe in them so much. Justin Herbert is going to be great for them. And let's actually take a quick breather from these games I'm looking forward to because I do want to talk about that. The main other thing I want to talk about in this stream is I'm wondering in the comments who you think is going to be the MVP this season, the most valuable player, and then I'm going to give my take on it. And we also have Offensive Player of the Year, so remember that's usually not a quarterback, it's usually another position player. Defensive Player of the Year, and then Rookie of the Year on the offensive and defensive sides. So let me know in the comments what you think for all those. We're starting with MVP. And for me, I have about 5 front runners, potentially a 6th in here that I'm looking at. And those are Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, and just for fun, I'm not going to actually pick him, but I'm going to throw JJ in there too because, and Jamar Chase for that matter. I think those 2 wide receivers are going to, dominate the league for years to come, and I just want to see them at least in like the top whatever for the MVP voting. Everyone knows it's going to go to a quarterback. And I don't know why they don't just call it the Quarterback of the Year award at this point this year. It makes no sense to me why they call it MVP when it's very clear it's always a quarterback. But for me this year, I think that if Mahomes can lead this team to a deep playoff run again, he instantly gets MVP because he's going to take a team. First of all, they're starting off kind of slow without Travis Kelce. You took away what little wide receiver support they had last year, and you still got Sky Moore, and you still have Kadarius Toney, but you've got kind of a different lineup now of wide receivers, and we saw the struggles Aaron Rodgers had with, as time went on, the front office and the coaches thought, this guy can just throw the ball to anyone, so we're just going to not give him any help, and we saw how that went for Aaron Rodgers, and it's a similar thing for Mahomes. I can't imagine a situation where Mahomes would ever struggle seriously unless he was seriously hurt, even if he had no help at that position. And I just think that, yes, it's hard to imagine that, but we said the same thing about Rodgers, and as time went on, that happened. But that being said, for this discussion, if Mahomes is able to carry this team with less offensive weapons even than he had last year, with honestly what could end up being a worse defense than last year as well, with all the stuff going on with those contract extension talks for Chris Jones, who is a big part of that defense, a big cog, and he's losing a lot of money on that holdout. So at this point, it feels like it's a point of no return for him, where if he doesn't get the exact money he wants, he's not going to play. So that's also concerning for the Chiefs. So you have all those things coalescing into, if he's able to lead this team, Mahomes deserves MVP for sure. Then Jalen Hurts. I feel like people are going to be really looking closely at Jalen Hurts this season. And before I keep going, there's another prediction by Kayla in there. Justin Jefferson for MVP. I want to see that too. He would have to have an absolutely transcendent year. He would have to break multiple records for that to happen. I can't even remember the last time they gave MVP to a player that wasn't a quarterback. Did Adrian Peterson win that one year? I can't remember. It's possible one of those years where he was at his absolute most dominant, it's possible he won that award. I can't remember. Even so, if he was the last to win it, that was 10, 15 years ago. And especially now with it being a pass heavy league, I feel like Jefferson would have to completely ball out in order to get that award. But I want to see that too. But moving on, Jalen Hurts is a quarterback, like I said. People are going to really be looking closely at him this year because he had a very impressive year last year. Whenever you get to that pinnacle moment and then you can't quite win the Super Bowl, obviously you're going to get a little bit of criticism for not being able to get the job done. When it's against Patrick Mahomes, you get a little less pressure put on you because he is Patrick Mahomes. But I think that it was kind of a similar situation to Joe Burrow a couple years ago when he just barely lost that Super Bowl to the Rams, and then you turned around the next season. They lost just last year in that first week of the season, kind of a freak loss to the Steelers. And all of a sudden people were saying, oh, the Bengals are just a one and done. And Joe Burrow, he's got to figure himself out. And there was a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow last year. And all of a sudden he was like one of the best quarterbacks in the league in everyone's eyes because he proved himself. And so whenever you have that target on your back, being that runner-up quarterback in the Super Bowl, people are going to look at you closely and say, can you get back to that point? Especially for Jalen Hurts, he had a very similar start to his career as Joe Burrow because he had 1 year where he was just kind of getting started. For Joe, it was an ACL tear that ended that. For Hurts, it was just kind of a mediocre start to his career. Some impressive moments, but it was kind of just, uninspiring to say the least. Even so, to the point where people were saying that the Eagles should have drafted a quarterback just in the last draft. And then Jalen Hurts makes a statement. He leads his team to almost making the Super Bowl or almost winning the Super Bowl and coming up just short last season. And now this is the year where he's got to prove that he can have those 2 consecutive seasons of being a very strong quarterback in the league. And I think it would take Hurts winning the Super Bowl this year to win MVP. But honestly, the Eagles are my Super Bowl pick right now. I went through the whole playoff field in my predictions video that I made a week ago, and I did predict the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. I think if they do that, a lot of it would have to be because of Jalen Hurts. Even with how stacked this team is, I can definitely see Jalen Hurts winning. And then obviously we have Joe Burrow. I don't have to say very much about him. We all know he's established himself as one of the best QBs in the league. I talked about him when I was comparing him to Jalen Hurts, so we don't have to say much about him. But the guy has some help offensively, obviously, with Jamar Chase catching passes from him. And, T. Higgins is also still a member of that team as well as Tyler Boyd. But Burrow puts the team on his back. He has that swagger about him, and it just kind of feels like whatever is tossed his way, he's going to find his way around it. The offensive line could spoil an MVP campaign for him, though, so that's why I'm a little trepidatious about him. And then we have Justin Herbert, where he is going to be the quarterback that I think takes the biggest leap out of any quarterback this year. And that's one of the main reasons why I have the Chargers in the second seed this year, because it's just I've said this multiple times now, but if you haven't watched those videos, I was talking about how when I saw the Chargers walk off the field, the way they reacted to giving up that lead and losing that wild card game to the Jags, I didn't feel the sense that they were defeated. They felt defeated, but not in the sense that they were giving up and that they, had no energy going into the offseason. I kind of felt the opposite, where they felt defeated, but in a way where they're going to come back with a vengeance. They're going to be angry. I just had a really good feeling as soon as I saw that happen that this season was going to be different for them. And, I'm taking the risk of believing it'll be different because it's been multiple years now and it hasn't been different. But I think this is the year that everything is going to come together. The defense is going to be better, and this guy, Justin Herbert, is going to be the reason why this team wins a lot of games this year. And it's why I thought he would vault into the top 5 for MVP voting. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to eliminate Justin Jefferson from my predictions because I talked about him already, and I just don't think the NFL will ever let a non-quarterback win. But the final one is Rodgers. I think that this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough for him to win MVP this year because of the overhyping of the Jets. You've got Aaron Rodgers coming in to a team that people saw him and thought he was the final piece of the puzzle. The Jets had a really good defense last year, and they were able to win a good amount of games. People forget at one point they were like 8-5, 8-4. When the Vikings played them, the game I actually went to last year, we played the Jets that week, and they were like 8-5 or 9-5 that week, and they were like in the playoff picture at that moment. And they did all that with one of the worst quarterback rooms in the league last year. So obviously, you throw in Aaron Rodgers, who's been a multiple time, I think he's won it 3 times the MVP now, and you throw him in, and all of a sudden people are saying, yep, this is it. The Jets are going to finally be legit. They're finally going to be a Super Bowl contender. So when you go into a season as a Super Bowl contender, you kind of have to win the Super Bowl for those expectations to be met and for, the MVP to go to you. And so that's kind of the weight that Aaron Rodgers has on his shoulders right now. Out of those 5, I'm going to go, this is tough. I'm narrowing it down now to Mahomes, Hurts, and Burrow. I think Hurts has a better chance out of him and Burrow to make the Super Bowl, and if he does, I think he'll win it. So I'm gonna now go between Mahomes and Hurts. I'm gonna go Mahomes. He's just so good, and like people get tired of everyone saying how good Mahomes is, but it's just how can you not say he's that good when he's just doing the things he's doing? He almost single-handedly carried the Chiefs past the Jags on one foot. He was limping on the field, still committing those spin moves and deking out defenders. I mean, he can do more on one leg than a lot of quarterbacks can do in this league with 2. And people saying that, everyone is just kind of giving Mahomes too much love. How can you not give him love when he's doing the things he's doing? He is the most talented quarterback that has ever played. It's not too much of an overstatement to say that, even though he's only been in the league for a few years. So I think he is the far and away MVP favorite. Before we only have like 10 minutes left, I really get, when I get into a groove, I forget how much time has passed, and it's bad, but at least I'm not running out of things to say because that would be a lot worse. Let's now go into Offensive Player of the Year because I feel like this is honestly the more interesting award because it can be given to running backs, wide receivers, even tight ends. I don't know if a tight end's ever won it, but it's more interesting because it's not just the leader of the team, it's a player that makes a difference. And the 4 main ones, excuse me, that I have are Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley. Let me know in the comments what you think that will be the winner of this award. I have a feeling I know what Kayla's already going to predict. Um, but Justin Jefferson, definitely the front runner, I think, for this award. He won it last year. Um, and then we got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this guy could easily win it as well. In the way that the league is working right now, where it is transitioning to running backs being kind of an afterthought, not getting the money that they deserve, and Christian McCaffrey is the one guy that stands out of that list of running backs. Maybe Derrick Henry as well. He's just going to be so overshadowed by having a bad team this year. But Christian McCaffrey on a team that is as successful as it is, largely in part to him and what he can do. He's one of the very various weapons on that 49ers team. And the thing that he's apart from everyone else is because he can catch the ball as well, just as well. I mean, he's basically a wide receiver and a running back all wrapped into one. He's an all-purpose back. As long as he doesn't get hurt this year, he will definitely be another front runner for that award. We got Saquon Barkley. I think that he definitely could carry a team this year to victory. The Giants are going to be a good team this year. I feel very good about them, and I think he's going to be a good reason why. He proved that he was still a good running back in the league last year. I think he's going to be the first one that I'm going to take off this list though, just because he is starting to kind of get older. Even though he's still pretty young, like he's getting up to that point where something's got to give. He's either going to show that he can be good for a few more years, or he's going to start his decline as running backs are getting less and less durable these days. But I wonder if that's going to change if running backs being used less and with a more pass heavy approach. I wonder if running backs are going to be able to start lasting longer in the league again. That's going to be an interesting thing to see. But anyway, I think that it's between Jamar, JJ, and McCaffrey. On the Jamar Chase side, the guy, as much as I love Justin Jefferson, and Kayla does say, yes, Justin Jefferson for Offensive Rookie of the Year or Offensive Player of the Year, I think I'd pick Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson. I hate to say it as a Vikings fan. And obviously McCaffrey is a great pick too. I feel like I don't know if I'm gonna pick Jamar Chase as a better wide receiver overall than Justin Jefferson, but I think that one thing that Chase can do even better than Jefferson is yards after catch. Obviously Jefferson's great with yards after catch too, but Jefferson's more just the contested catches and being able to catch pretty much everything, mossing everyone. But Chase just has a slight edge because of the fact that he can catch a ball and you have no idea. He's either off to the races with some like game-breaking speed, or he can make guys miss better than any other player in the league. I think he's just a little more physical in that sense than Justin Jefferson, and I think he's on a team that could potentially go to the Super Bowl this year. And so for all those reasons combined, I think I would pick Jamar Chase as my offensive player of the year. So before we finish off the stream, we just have a few more minutes. I am going to just restate my prediction for this game because I did make a prediction in that video, but it did just come out like 8 hours ago now. I released that at 11. So if you didn't watch that video, I will give my prediction for the Lions-Chiefs game live on air here. And make sure you comment also in the comments what you think the winner of this game is going to be, and also give me your score prediction, what you think. But my prediction in this game is that the Chiefs are going to get this job done. I think that obviously Travis Kelce being injured is a big concern for this team. That being said, Mahomes, under the lights at Arrowhead. I think if this game was at Ford Field in Detroit, I think that definitely could be a game that the Lions could win. And I do think it'll be close. Again, I think it's going to start off a little bit slow, and then it's going to pick up as the game continues. I just think that it's probably going to come down to the last 5 minutes of the game, and Mahomes is not going to let the game end. And he is going to find a way to win this game even without Kelce, and maybe even a defensive stop for the Chiefs. So it'll end up being a shootout by the end of it, and I think the Chiefs are going to come out the victors. let's see, what I'm thinking of a good way to end off this stream. I think I'll just give a few announcements before because we only have 3 more minutes. But first of all, thank you so much for tuning in to this stream. I had a whole lot of fun talking to you guys about the season, just getting hyped. You know, I like streams because with a video, you got to kind of keep it under 20 minutes and you have to keep it succinct. People are watching it quickly, as they eat breakfast or driving to work, and you kind of have to flesh out your ideas a little bit less. I kind of like that, we're just kind of hanging out, having fun. I can kind of go on tangents if I want to. It's just a little more of an intimate thing, and I'm hoping I can kind of expand my viewer base as time goes along. But thank you so much to everyone who tuned into this one, and I hope this gains more traction as I can start to do it at least bi-weekly, if not weekly. We'll have to see how it goes, but now that I have the equipment to make this happen, it's a lot of fun, and just knowing I can stream anytime is a lot of fun as well. One prediction from Kayla: Chiefs win 35-21. That's a very high scoring game. We'll see if that happens. For the score prediction, I would say I'm going to go 28-24. I think the Chiefs win off of a touchdown late in the game that the Lions can't quite come back from, if I had to guess what I think would happen. But again, thank you guys so much for watching this. 2 minutes left. I think I'll just kind of wrap it up in a nice, neat little bow and end the stream about a minute early. But as I get ready to race over the TV and start watching the game, we finally made it, is all I'm going to just finish off by saying. It was a really long 3 months. Every single year, or 3 months, it's been like 6, 7 months. But that time after the draft, between like July and August, like the end of August, is just brutal. So every year I feel like it takes longer to get to this point, especially the last few weeks. Thankfully, I've been busy the last few weeks, so it's kind of made things go by faster. But I'm glad we were all able to watch football again. I can't wait for that opening kickoff. And we're 20 minutes away now, so everyone, sit back, enjoy yourselves, and watch the game tonight. Enjoy it, and I'll be here for Friday. Make sure tomorrow you watch the game. Excuse me, I almost paused because I was gonna edit it out, but it's live. But make sure you tune in to the video tomorrow where I break down the Vikings Bucks game, and then the Raw reaction again will happen on Sunday. I'll be at the stadium to react to that Vikings Bucks game. And then on Monday, or Tuesday actually, I'm going to be breaking down this first week, and then the cycle will continue. So 4 videos a week from now towards the end of the season. So I can't wait to bring that all to you. But thank you guys so much for tuning into the live stream. It would be a little more awkward as I end it right now. I can't cut it off succinctly. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side. Have a nice night, everyone.